Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first part of your almost semester long project. I want to remind you that this project is in place of taking a final exam. So we do not have a final exam for this class. Instead, think of this project as being like an exam you get to do in little bits and pieces throughout the semester instead of just all on one stressful day. So, um, in this project, you are going to pick a crop that is commonly grown in California, and you're going to dive into the production and the economics of that crop. Um, there are 6 parts to this project. The first 5 are based on research that you'll be doing and putting together. And the 6th part is actually you getting to teach the class about your crop. And that will be done in a 5 to 10 minute video presentation that you'll prepare and submit in the week before finals. And then during finals week, the only thing that you have to do to finish up this class is to watch 3 of your classmates' video presentations and review them. So let's jump into part 1. So to start, you need to pick a crop. And to do that, I have a set list of California crops available. To do that, you're going to go to our Google Sheet. You can use this link in the PDF. I should also mention this document, this PDF on part 1 of the project is available in the part 1 section of the project module, which is on our homepage in Canvas. I will put this video in there as well so that that module will be one place where you can go to find all the project information. So you can find the Google Sheet link either on this document, or it will also be in the page for part 1 instructions. So you get to the Google sign up sheet, see which one is this one. So it looks like this. These are the crops in column A that you have to choose from. And then you will pick one and put your name in column B. Now I'd like for us to just have 2 people per crop so that we don't have a bunch of people doing the same thing. 2 people per crop. We have 30 people in the class and only 14 crops. So that means that 2 people the last 2 people to sign up, there won't be a space for you here in column B, but just pick one of the crops and put your name next to it in column C, next to whichever crop you choose to do. Okay, so that is signing up for the crop. And do that preferably soon, but let's go back to our instructions. Okay, so that is the first step in part 1, signing up for your crop. Okay, part 2, you're going to start doing some research on how your crop is grown in California. Now, I only want you to use resources that are reliable and as up to date as possible. Sometimes some official documents about crop production will be older, especially in the case with like production style and methods haven't changed that much. You might be using an older document, like 10 to 15 years old. If you can, please try to use documents that are or have been published within the last 5 years. That will give you the best information. In general, anything that comes from the UC, the University of California system, from scientific research, and you can find that in journals, our Cabrillo Library online. They on their webpage they have a great system to help you search through academic journals. Industry journals are good sources. Anything published by an industry group like a commodity board or a growers alliance, that's a good resource. Yeah, any other high quality resource. If you have a question, if you're like not sure if this is a reliable resource, shoot me an email, just like send me a link to it and be like, hey, like who are these people? Where do they get this information? And we can decide together whether or not that's a reliable resource. So in this research section, you should be finding out information like what type of system is your crop grown in? Is it grown in fields like a row crop, or is it grown in an orchard or a vineyard? What's the system that it's grown in? And then what kind of climate does it like best? What's the best climate to grow it in? And then what are steps that the grower goes through from the start to the harvest? And by start, um, I mean, so some plants are generally started from seed in the field, or they're started from seed in a greenhouse if the farm has access to a greenhouse. Sometimes farmers will buy in we call transplants or plugs, and they're like little tiny baby plants that come in these very small, like 1 by 1 inch or even smaller trays, and those transplants are put out into the field versus starting seeds in the field. So we want to know the steps from that start, either seeds or transplants, all the way up until harvest. What is the farmer doing in between those 2 points in time? There's a lot of management that goes into most crops in that time period. We want to know how they perform these steps. Do they do a lot of stuff with machinery? Um, or are there things that they do by hand? What are typical methods for growing these crops? We want to know about special equipment that farmers need to grow. Most people know that farms tend to have tractors. But if you are, say, a walnut farm, a walnut orchard, you're going to need some specialized equipment, particularly for harvesting. They have some pretty crazy stuff like for walnuts. They harvest by actually shaking the nuts off the trees. They fall to the ground. So they have these uh, giant machines that are called tree shakers. And they have this big arm that comes out. It grabs the tree and it just shakes it until everything falls off. So I want to know about stuff like that. What do you need to farm your particular crop? Now, one place to get ideas about what kind of equipment might be used is actually YouTube videos. And I know that it doesn't really sound like a reliable source, but for equipment, it's a good place to go to get started. And then you can verify that information. There are growers who have some videos on, say, like if your crop is strawberries, you can Google video search. Um, what equipment do farmers need to grow strawberries? And you might be able to find a video that shows you a bunch of different machines. And that's great because you get a visual too. Um, what else do we want to know? Oh yeah, we want to know what the top 3 producing counties in California for your crop during year 2022 were. And I'll show you how to find that information shortly in the next step, or one of the next steps. What else did I want to say? There was something I wanted to say about, oh yeah, a good place to find some of this information is actually, so UC Davis and maybe some of the other UCs, they do these cost study analyses, these sample cost analyses for different crops. And you will be using this at some point in the project. Hopefully use it during this step because it's got good information. And the link to this page, which is where all these studies are aggregated, the link to this page will be in the page for part 1 of this project where you found this video. I'll put a link to this page. You can find, let's just do almonds since it's the first one. You can click on this PDF for almonds grown in the year 2024. And these are the production conditions. So a certain type of system that they're looking at the cost for. So we can go to almonds here. And this document, this is meant to give farmers an idea of how much it costs to grow a certain crop. including for almonds, orchard installation, which is very expensive, um, and also maybe some different pricing strategies depending on their acreage. There's a lot of information in here. For this first part of your project, the introduction might have some useful information for you. And then this assumptions, there's a few pages on assumptions. So when they prepare these cost studies, they're assuming that a farmer is using a fairly specific set of practices or methods to produce that crop. So this section will tell you a lot about how an orchard site is prepared here, what kinds of inputs you use, like compost, how trees are planted and when they're planted. You can keep going down and going through. Here's pruning and training trees, types of fertilizer that are used. Yeah, there's lots of information here. Irrigation systems. What type of system is there? Does the crop need pollination? Some crops like almonds rely on pollination from like honeybees. Other crops like lettuce, we're not interested in the plant producing the seed, so we don't really care about pollination. So that's a good thing to note. How are pests managed, and what are the pests that we're worried about in this crop? So pests, there's a lot of information. There's different types of pests, insects and mites. There's weed management here. Lots of good stuff in this document. Yeah, here's more cultural practices. It goes into depth on pruning and fertilizing. Frost production, that might be something that we're worried about. So yeah, this document, which there is one for each of your crops, and it will be on this page, which will be linked in the part 1 project page. You can search for your commodity here, or scroll through this list to find it, and then just use the most up-to-date one. Like for almonds are a very, very valuable crop in California. So they do a lot of cost studies on this in different regions, and maybe using different methods. Like, let's see, these are both San Joaquin Valley. These are this one is for producing self-fertile almonds, and this one is for producing regular almonds. So there is a difference there. If you have almonds and you want to go into that, I'm more than happy to talk to you about it, or you can research it on your own. Almond production is kind of an interesting crop in that you need pollinator trees and then producing trees. Okay, that's where to get some good information. Let's go back to our instructions. As you do your research, I highly recommend that you keep track of what sources you use as you go. When I was a student, it took me a long time to figure this out, but I would like do all my research and write my paper, and then I'd be like, oh shoot, like where did I get that information? And I'd have to Google search everything again. So the way that I avoid that is I always have a tab open on my computer to a Google Sheet where you can just copy and paste the link to whatever file you're using or whatever resource you're using, put the link, and next to it you can put just some notes so that you know what information in your project that link pertains to. And you should probably keep track of which part in your project that information goes to. And like some of these will probably, you'll be using the same resource for multiple parts. All right, so the next step in part 1 is to gather some data and then generate some graphs. We're going to walk through that together now. You're going to use the County Ag Commissioner's reports to find data on California's total annual yield or production and the value of that production for each year between 2011 and 2022. So you'll be making 3 tables to organize that data, and then 3 graphs, one for each table. And we will go over that in a moment. Um, what you should be turning in is for two, yeah, you have 2 weeks to do this, basically. So this is due 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, October 5th. What you are turning in for this part is a PDF of your Google Sheets document that has your 3 tables and your 3 graphs. That's all that you have to turn in. The other part of your research, I don't necessarily need to see it. I'm going to trust that you are going to go ahead and do this and not procrastinate too much, because remember, this is your final. This project is a huge part of your grade. So keep up with this work, and I highly, highly, highly recommend that you do it within the due date of whatever piece I'm going to have you turn in for every part of the project. Yeah, don't let it rack up till the last minute. You don't want to be freaking out about this right before finals when you have lots of other stuff going on in your life and for your schoolwork. So let's see, let's check out our Google Sheet. Okay, we're gonna start right here. I'm gonna get rid of this information actually, because we're gonna fill that in together. So, like I said, we're gonna do 3 tables. One table will be all of the total production for all of California for your crop. One, and that's versus year. One will be the total value of that crop for every year. And then one will be a combination of those two things, the value and the production. So first we have to gather our data, and we're going to gather all of the data together in the first chart, or the first table. So let me show you guys how to do this, just in case you do not know. So I'm going to put in this cell, A2, this is going to be my year here. And then in this one, I'm going to put production, and that's going to be in tons. That's my unit, tons. And then the value goes here, and that is in dollars. So here's where I'm going to put my first table. Now, I like to have a title for my table that tells me what kind of data I'm looking at. And for that, I like to do what's called merging cells. So we're going to take these 3 cells here on the top. We're going to click this button, this merge cells button. If you don't see this up here, then it should be under the 3 little dots for more. So click that, and it turns those 3 cells into 1 cell. And that's a nice, neat place to put your title. So I'm going to do this example on cilantro. So I'm going to say this is California's cilantro crop production and value. So that's my table title. And I said we're going to do years 2011 through 2022. There's a reason for that I picked those years, which I'll tell you about. So if you don't know this trick in Sheets or in Excel, if you just put in the first 2 parts of a series of something, so we're talking about a series of years, you can just put in the first 2 years, highlight them, and then use this little blue dot in the corner, click on that and drag down, and it auto-fills in. It predicts the rest of the sequence of that series. So that's just kind of a quick trick. We're only doing through 2022, so I'm going to get rid of 2023. Okay, so this is my table that's set up for me to put my data in. Now we're going to use the County Ag Commissioner's data listing. Now this website is also linked in the page for this part of the project. It's the County Ag Commissioner's data. So basically every year in California, the ag commissioners for each county, the people who are responsible for keeping track of what a county is producing, they take all the information from every county in the state, all the crops that they're producing, and they aggregate this data into these crop um, or these data reports. So we go down here to find, let's start with 2011, that's our first year, and you click on this PDF button here. Click on the PDF, and here it is. Here's the reports for all the crops grown in California in 2011. The first page is always a map of California. If you're interested in saying, you know, oh, where's Yuba County? Then you can come here and you can find, oh, Yuba County is right there. Okay, so that's kind of useful. Table of contents. This is where we're going to start. What we're interested in here is the commodity index and the commodity data. Now, the reason I picked years 2011 through 2022 is that the reports are all very uniform in how they're set up. About every like 10 to 15 years, they kind of change the format of the report. So it would be difficult to try and figure out where to find the information we're looking for on reports that are done in a different format. So on this one, we have our commodity index and our commodity data. We're going to go to the index, which is on page 18. So we'll go down, 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 past all this other information that you don't need to know about right now. Here is our commodity index. So here's the page numbers, by the way, are at the bottom. They're at the bottom right here, page 18. You can navigate with these pages over here. Just be aware that the document doesn't start with page 1, so the page numbers don't necessarily line up. So my crop that I'm doing an example on is cilantro. And here's cilantro right here. It's on page 33. So I'm going to find page 33, which is probably around here. Chestnuts, chickens, chives, Christmas trees, cilantro. Here we go. So this is the data that I'm interested in right here. So in this first column, what we have is how many acres of each county. In this case, it looks like only Monterey and Ventura counties reported. There may be other counties growing cilantro, but it's probably not a huge part of their agricultural economy. So Monterey and Ventura, it is. So they've reported. So these are the amount of acres in each county that it produced cilantro in that year. The next column is your yield per acre for each county. We don't need this information, but it is interesting to note that, see, Monterey, Ventura's got like twice as much yield per acre as Monterey, so that's interesting. I wonder why. Total production, this is one of the numbers that we want. So total production in tons, it tells you in tons here. 44,193. So we can highlight that number and we just copy it. We go over to our table and 2011 production in tons. We can paste that information right there. Okay, so next, the next piece of information we're interested in is the total value. So come up here, the total value of all the cilantro grown in California. We're looking at the state total, not the county totals. The state total was $25,300,000 and some. So we can highlight that, copy it, the value, we put it right in here, we paste it, $25 million. Okay, so those are the two pieces of information that we are interested in getting. So next I'm going to go to the next year's report. So 2012, we go here and same thing. I'm going to go to my index, commodity index is page 18. So I think they're about 3 pages ahead. Nope, 4 pages. Okay, so I'm looking for cilantro again. Where are we? Right here, page 34. Oops, let's find page 34. Cilantro, here we go. Okay, so this one's a little harder to see because that it tells you what those numbers mean at the very top, but we are looking for the production. So this column, and that's 34,393. I'm going to copy that. And over here, this is 2012 production. Put that right there. And then same thing for the total value. So the total value of the whole state, the state total value is 28 million some odd dollars. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it right here. So you'll do that for every year between 2011 and 2022. Just look through all the reports. I know it seems tedious once you get used to looking at them. It doesn't actually take that much time. So yeah, you will have a table that is all filled out. And that table should look something like this when you're done. Everyone's going to have different numbers in here. So everyone's doing a different crop. But this will be your table. And this should actually say crop production and value. Okay. So this is our first table. This is the table that tells us the year, the production, and the value all in one. I want to break these into 2 separate tables. I want one table that shows us just the year and the production. And then I want one table that shows us just the year and the value. Oops, missed that one up. Just the year and the value in dollars. Okay, so I'm going to come in here. I'm going to copy the year column. I'm going to paste it here. And I'll paste it again here. And we have the production table. I'm going to take this production column, copy it, paste it there. And then the value, copy it and paste it into this table. Okay, so now I have my 3 tables, and I like things nice and neat, so I'm going to give it some nice borders. You can do this if you want, or you can not. It's up to you. Correct that. Merge. There's too many cells merged together. Okay. This. Okay. So now I'm going to show you how to make graphs from this data. This graph is probably going to be a little bit more complex than the other 2 graphs, right? Because we have 3 columns. And so we'll start with this graph. Let's start with production. So you want to highlight your headings for your columns and then all of your data. Highlight that all together. And then you're going to go to Insert here and Chart. And look at that. It generates a line graph for you, which is great. So we want to kind of clean this graph up and make sure that it is acceptable. I would change the title, the graph title. This is not a very descriptive graph title. If you just handed this graph to someone and they wouldn't know what you were talking about. Well, the production in tons versus year of what. So we're going to give this a title, and I'm going to call it California cilantro production. Okay, California cilantro production. And you can do that by double clicking on this title. So let's see. Okay. So if you do not have your graph selected, if you just click on a blank spot in the corner of the graph, double click there, and it opens this window to the right. And this is where you put in like custom labels and change things on your graph. So you can go there. If you click customize chart and axis titles, and you have to make sure chart title is selected right here, chart title. You can put in your title here, or you can double click on this and it allows you to edit it. You can also edit your axes titles by coming here, and you have to select which axis you want to edit. So this chart, this looks fine to me. Yeah, everything is kind of the way that we want to see it. We have production on the y-axis, and it says in tons. We need to have this, the units available so that the viewer knows, 40,000 what? What are you talking about? Tons. And then the year on the x-axis. So that is our first graph. And I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller so that we have room to work here. Okay, so the next graph, it's really the same thing. You're going to highlight this information, and you're going to insert chart, and it will come up with a chart. And okay, so I'm going to edit my title, and I want to call this California cilantro total value. Okay, so I've got my value here on my y-axis and my year on my x-axis, so that looks good. What I personally don't really like about this, about the way it's set this up, is these axis units. So this to me looks really clunky and crowded. It's showing full million values here. So I'd like to clean it up by changing the changing how these numbers are presented. So if you click just on these, click on these, it brings you to the vertical axis section over here. You can also access this just in the customize tab of your graph over here. Vertical axis gives you a little drop down. What we're looking for is the scale factor. When the scale factor is set at default, it will use the values that you used in your table. Exactly. These values are all in millions, right? We have 50 million here. We have 100 million here. We have 150 million here. Those are big numbers. So I would like to change this so that it just says 50, 100, 150. We do that with the scale factor. We're dealing with millions, so we click on the 1 million scale factor, 6 zeros, million, right there. So that changes our y-axis to be a little bit easier to read. There's not so many zeros going on. But now we have to change the axis title. If we don't change the axis title, this will be really confusing for consumers because, or not for consumers, but for viewers, because we know that California produces more than $50 in cilantro, right? $50 is not very much cilantro for an entire state to produce. So we have to specify in our axis title here that we're not talking about dollars. We're not talking about dollars anymore. We're talking about millions of dollars. So you can make your axis title reflect the scale of your graph. So you need to change it to millions of dollars. Okay, everything else here on this graph looks good to me. So I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to move it down here. So our third graph, our third and final graph, is going to be a little bit more complicated. It's going to show two sets of data. It's going to show us production and value on the same graph. So it's going to look something like this. When you have a graph that shows two lines that are reflecting two different things, then the way that it's done is that the y value for one of the things is on the left, like a normal graph. The y value for the other thing is on the right. So our legend for the graph, this part up here, this shows you which line represents which set of data. So our blue line is our production in tons. Our red line is our value. So we know that the red line is the value, so it corresponds to this axis, the y-axis on the left. So when we read the red line, we're reading it the x-axis on the bottom, the y-axis on the left. When we are looking at the other value, or the other, I won't say value because that's confusing, the other set of data, production in tons, the fact that in the legend it says production next to the blue line tells us that we're using the axis on the right. So when we read the blue line, we're reading it by the x-axis and by the y-axis on the right. So that's what the graph will look like. It's not as straightforward to create a graph like this. So here's how you do it. Just like in these two, oh, I forgot to mention. So, oh no, I did mention about pasting the data from each of these, I think. If I did not, so this was the data that I started out with. And then I just copy pasted the data that I wanted into a new chart or a new table. I think I mentioned that, but okay, so to do a chart of this table, you're going to highlight your information just like before, insert chart, and it comes up with this. Now this, it doesn't really look like the one that we just looked at as an example, right? Something looks kind of funky about it. There's only one line, and that's because Sheets will not automatically give you a y-axis on the right. So it only shows one line. We have to tell it, if we go to customize series, we have to tell it to put one line corresponding to the axis on the left and one line corresponding to the axis on the right. So we go to this series tab, and what series are the types of data that we're looking at. So our value is one series. It's the series that's represented by the red line. Our production is another series of data. So it's represented by the blue line. So if we go to our series under the Customize tab, and you click on this apply to all series, our value one looks fine. So we're not going to mess with that. We're going to mess with the production series. So if you click on the production series there, and then you go down, and it asks you which axis you want to use for this series. We're going to click on that, and we're going to set it to the right axis. There we go. That looks much better. So we still have some things to change to clean up this graph. Here I'm going to give it a title. I'm going to say California cilantro crop production and value. All right, so our x-axis, our year, looks fine, but our other axes, our two y-axes, don't have a title. So we need to give them a title. So if you go to this customize tab over here again, and remember, you can only see this menu if you have your chart or your graph highlighted. So make sure you highlight it, come over here, and you're going to go to chart and axis titles. Click on that. This first menu is what axis you want to work on. So let's do the left vertical axis title. Left will always just be written as vertical axis title. It's the assumed, the normal axis. So vertical axis title, we are again going to say that this is value. We're going to clean it up again so it's millions of dollars. Millions of dollars on the left there, the vertical axis title. And then you just click over to the right vertical axis title. And we are going to call this one production in tons. Production in tons is on the left. Now, just like in our last, or our value graph, I don't like the way that this is written with all of the zeros. So we are going to go to vertical axis, scale factor 1 million. There we go. So this only changes the left vertical axis. I'm fine with this thousands. To me, that's not visually, like it's not too many zeros. I can handle thousands, so I'm gonna leave that one. Let's see. If you did want to change the right vertical axis, since we created the right vertical axis with the series tab, which we just did, this has popped up. So you could come in and change the scale factor for this one, but I'm going to leave it just the way it is. So that is your third graph. So I'm going to move this down here so that we can see everything. So what you're going to turn in is going to be this sheet with your three tables, your crop production and value, your crop production and then separately your value, your three tables, and your three graphs or charts. If I didn't mention this before, the word chart and graph are often used interchangeably. So your three charts or graphs down here. Please make sure that you have cleaned them up and made them nice and presentable so that you could hand this to any stranger on the street or in an elevator and they would know what information you were trying to show them. So to turn this in, you're going to go up here to value, or it's not value, file, download, and you can do PDF. PDF is the best format to turn this in. And it brings you to this, oh, I don't like how that is split onto 2 pages. It makes it very hard to read. So I'm actually going to cancel that. Come back here and see. Let's move this chart over here. And let's see if that solves the issues. Let me go here, download again as a PDF. Okay, that's good. Yeah, everything is on the same page. It's all easy to read. Nothing is covering anything else. So then you click export. And it is downloading. It pops up here. You can open it here. And then this is the kind of weird thing if you're using Chrome, it doesn't automatically download things you tell it to download to your computer. It takes you to this other page. And from here, you have to click download again. And it will give you a menu to save it onto your computer. You can save it anywhere on your computer that you would like. And then, yeah, you can turn in this PDF at the assignment and you are good to go. So I hope that's helpful. If you have any trouble with this at all, if you are new to using Google Sheets, you can, please send me an email, contact me, let me know so that I can help you through this. If you have not used Google Sheets before, well, that's a good idea. Let me show you how you access Google Sheets. So on Google, if you are signed in with your Google account, your Google email, or your Cabrillo email is a Google account. If you're signed in with that on the regular Google homepage, you can come here and you just go to Sheets, here, this green icon. And you can click New Sheet. And it gives you a nice blank sheet. You can edit the title up here, put in your own title. So there you go. That's briefly how to use Google Sheets and then how to do the graphing assignment for this part of the project. Good luck. Let me know if I can help you in any way to accomplish this.